Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few players I would go out there and stash right now, or it's too late and some of these players break out in the hot waiver wire pickups. Next week, the first player, Kamini Vidal of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Vidal last week, he was on the list. Showed up with a nice game in his debut with the Denver Broncos. 4 carries, 11 yards, 2 catches, 40 yards on a 38-yard touchdown. So we know J.K. Dobbins, obviously the lead back over there for this Los Angeles Charger team. But Kamini Vidal, he's next in line, obviously the backup running back. Nice wheel route down the sideline, making the catch. And this week, I think his workload could go up just a little bit more. J.K. Dobbins coming off an ACL and Achilles injury over the last few seasons. We don't know if he's going to hold up. So Vidal, even after that good performance last week, still out there in 86% of fantasy leagues. And definitely a player I look to stash this week. The next player, Sean Tucker of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Sean Tucker, surprisingly, still out there in tons of fantasy leagues after the monster performance. 85% of leagues he's available in after going for 14 carries, 136, a touchdown, 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. So after a performance like that, Todd Bowles came out and said he could see a 3 running back committee for this Tampa Bay Buc team. And Sean Tucker definitely look good and more versatile and a better running back than Rachaad White's ever looked this season, in my opinion, where him and Bucky Irvin was a good 1-2 combo. So out there in 85% of leagues, a lot of people didn't buy into the monster performance he had last week at the New Orleans Saints. But like I said, if Rachaad White's foot injury lingers or if he's back on the field as White and he just can't get the job done, I think Tucker's going to eat into the workload and get some good work. So right now, I would stash Tucker on my roster and see what happens in the upcoming game on Monday night versus the Ravens. Next stash, Tyler Goodson of the Indianapolis Colts. So this backfield is totally banged up. Sermon banged up as well now with an ankle injury. Jonathan Taylor, he hasn't practiced so far early in the week. And Goodson still out there in 95% of fantasy leagues. And he's looked like the better back between him and Sermon over the last couple weeks, filling in for Jonathan Taylor. Week 5 at Jacksonville, 5 carries, 26 yards, 3 catches, 31 yards. And week 6 at the Titans, where Sermon didn't do anything, Goodson went out there with a good performance, 8 carries, 51 yards, 4 catches, 14 yards on 5 targets. He's a receiving back for this Indianapolis Colts team. This week, he might be the lead back after signing Salvon Ahmed to the practice squad. Definitely gives a telling sign that Sermon might not play in this ball game, adding more depth to the practice squad. So like I said, Goodson looked decent the last couple weeks, out there in 95% of fantasy leagues. And if you could get a starting running back, not wasting a waiver or fab money straight off the wire, especially widely available, this will be the time to do it, in my opinion, for Goodson this week. And I had Demario Douglas of the New England Patriots. Demario Douglas, he was a pickup this week off the waiver wire, still out there in 70% of fantasy leagues. And if he goes out there and has another double-digit fantasy game in PPR leagues, he's easily going to be owned in over 50% of leagues. So this is most likely the last chance for owners to go out there and get him. This week, a good matchup with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the last 2 games for Douglas, week 5 versus Miami, 6 catches, 59 yards, 9 targets. And week 6 versus the Texans, 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. So right now, he's pretty much operating as the number 1 target in this passing game, with Hunter Henry, the tight end, being the number 2 target for this New England Patriot team. So like I said, Demario Douglas, he's shown some flashes this season. 3 out of 4 games with double-digit fantasy points. And even towards the end of last year, he's had some ball games as well where he went out there and looked pretty decent, was Demario Douglas. So this week, while he's still widely available in 70% of fantasy leagues, and the last chance for owners to go out there and get him, in my opinion, without wasting a waiver or a claim, this would be the time to do it. This week, the next player, Xavier Legette of the Carolina Panthers. So Legette, he's been on this list a couple times this season, and the last 2 out of 3 games he's found the end zone is Legette. Week 4 versus Cincinnati, 6 catches, 66 yards, a touchdown on 10 targets. Week 5 at the Bears, he got banged up early in that one with a shoulder injury, a catch for 8 yards, but returned in week 6 with 3 catches, 23 yards, and a touchdown. Right now, the number 2 wide receiver over there for this Carolina Panther team. Big wide out, go up, get the jump ball, could run the slant routes, run in the middle of the field. And he was a first-round pick for a reason, was Legette this season in the NFL draft from this Carolina Panther team, where obviously they wanted to improve their offense after last season was a bad offense. Adam Thielen's out as well with the hamstring. We don't know if he's coming back right when his IR stint is eligible to be activated. But this week, a good matchup with the Commanders. Give up the 5th most points to wideouts on the season. Legette's out there right now in 82% of fantasy leagues. If he finds the end zone once again, is legit. Be scooped up in tons of fantasy leagues. So right now, I would beat other Ronis to the wire and stash him this week. And the final stash is Jalen Tolbert of the Dallas Cowboys. So Jalen Tolbert's been on this list over the last couple weeks, and he's the number 2 wide receiver for this Dallas Cowboy team. And right now on bye, now back on the waiver wire in most fantasy leagues is Tolbert out there in 76% of leagues with the Cowboys on bye. So Tolbert, since Cook's been out, now Tolbert obviously getting an expanded role. Week 5 in Pittsburgh, 7 catches, 87 yards, a touchdown, 10 targets. And then week 6 versus Detroit, 4 catches, 43 yards on 5 targets. And he did drop a nice deep ball down the sidelines, or he would have had another double-digit fantasy games. So this season, 3 games out of 6 double-digit fantasy points for Tolbert. Brandon Cooks, I've said this in other videos, I think his best days are behind him. And Jalen Tolbert's going to step in now, I believe, as the number 2 wide receiver and get more into the playbook, especially after the bye week where we see younger players get more playing time, study up even more. And also the other thing with Tolbert, he took a lot of first-team snaps when CeeDee Lamb was holding out all training camps. He's got experience there as well, and we've seen this Cowboy team. They're not going to go out there and make a deal for a receiver with Adams and Amari Cooper off the board. With Adams going to the Jets and Cooper to the Bills, so Tolbert pretty much locked in as a starter at the number 2 wide receiver position. So that's a few players I look to stash for week 7 of the fantasy football season.